So thank you so much for joining us. This platform forms an important part of Gauteng's broader economic diplomacy efforts, strengthening relationships with international community and deepening partnerships that enable investment, trade, and industrial collaboration. So your presence here today reflects the growing importance of global partnership in shaping Africa's economic future and building the Africa we want, an Africa that is industrialized, integrated, and globally competitive. Gauteng is, as we all know, is the economic hub of this beautiful country of ours, South Africa. We always, rumble these numbers because that's who we are when we introduce ourselves in various global platforms. This province contributes approximately 1/3 of the South African GDP, South Africa's GDP. And we host the country's most sophisticated financial services sector, industrial base, as well as logistics infrastructure. More importantly, Gauteng serves as a gateway economy, particularly to the African continent. We provide investors with strategic platforms for regional expansion as the Africa Continental Free Trade Area reshapes the geography of trade and industrial production across Africa. Between 2020 and 2024, South Africa engaged in over 2.3 trillion in exports and 798 billion in imports with African countries. I was sitting earlier with the Excellency from Tunisia. We were talking about how we don't like the numbers. I was hoping I'm going to get it right the first time. She said she's a lawyer, and I said I'm a social scientist. So that works out. So this intra-African trade performance underscores South Africa's role as a continental economic sector. Within this national picture that I've just painted, Gauteng stands at the center of Africa-facing trade and investment activity. So as a province, we account for 521 billion in imports, representing 65% of South Africa's imports from Africa, and 1.3 trillion in exports, representing over 60% of South Africa's exports to African markets. I think this is an important statistics or important data, because all the time we're asked, why do you call yourself a hub, an economic hub? But most importantly, how come you call yourself that hub? And when you now talk to investors, you're saying, invest in South Africa, but come to Gauteng, because that gives you an opportunity to expand into the rest of the continent. And I think, Your Excellencies and ladies and gentlemen, these data or the statistics speaks for itself. It basically reflects Gauteng's position as a command center of the South African economy, hosting the headquarters of major firms, a financial institution, logistics network, and manufacturing platforms that serve markets across this beautiful continent of ours called Africa. However, this concentration also highlights an important strategic opportunity. While a trade integration with neighboring economies is strong, engagement with high-growth markets such as West Africa, North Africa, and East Africa remains underdeveloped, and we can't ignore that. And we believe that strengthening these connections will be critical in building diversified African value chains and accelerating the ambitions of the AFCFTA. So today's engagement, ladies and gentlemen, is centered on an objective, which is building stronger investment partnership. So at the Gauteng Growth and Development Agency, our mandate is to connect global capital with strategic opportunities in our golden province. That's what we call ourselves, because we were founded, this is a place of gold. So we call ourselves that golden province. So, but investment today, you would agree with me, Excellencies, that it goes beyond just capital alone. It is about long-term partnerships that drive innovation, industrial growth, most importantly, skills development and sustainable economic expansion. It is also about ensuring that investments contribute to inclusive growth and job creation. And those two things are quite critical and are on top of the agenda when it comes to Gauteng government provincial priorities. it remains that central priority for the Gauteng provincial government. So in this regard, the diplomatic community plays a critical role in linking Gauteng with investors, building an institution in your respective countries. So Excellency from Gabon, you said you were in Washington. In fact, in Gauteng, we house almost 92, if not 93, of international mission, which is second to Washington. So that's the you know, that's the kind of play Gauteng has in the global, investment community. So, Excellencies, allow me to also highlight a key milestone in Gauteng's investment mobilization strategy. The Gauteng Investment Conference 2026 is scheduled to take place on the 9th of April here in Johannesburg at the Melrose Arch. And it will serve as the province's flagship platform to mobilize investment, strengthen strategic partnership, and position Gauteng as a leading subnational investment destination in the African continent. And one thing that we're doing quite differently from the first installment, which was in 2025, is we've taken the Pan-African approach. We have immediately after delivering the 2025 installment, took a position that we're going to engage through the missions here, all the African countries, so that we begin to come together and collaborate and see how we can activate or fast track the whole thing around the African continental free trade area. And the conference is convened by Gauteng provincial government, and it will bring together global investors, development finance institutions, business leaders, and policymakers to explore bankable project and partnership opportunities. Someone told me that there's no lack of funding, but there's a lack of bankable projects, which talks to issues around project preparation. So the inaugural conference in 2025, just to recap a bit, achieved quite significant milestone for us as a province. We had over 1,865 delegates participated across governments, business, and international institutions. So we ran two platforms, so the physical and the virtual platform. And this conference secured an investment commitment valued at 312 billion across priority sectors. So what was going to be very important for us as the Gauteng Growth and Development Agency is that pledges are pledges. So we fixated or we focused on how do we then drive the conversion of these pledges and realize them as projects so that we can, A, get that inclusive growth that we're looking for, B, get the job opportunities that we're looking for, and grow, of course, the economy. So these commitments, the 312 billion commitments, they span across critical areas to Gauteng's economic transformation, and it includes projects within the ICT and digital infrastructure. It includes renewable energy, projects in renewable energy and green economy, advanced manufacturing and industrialization, infrastructure development, as well as township and inclusive economic development. The last one around township and inclusive economic development is at the heart of who we are as this province. We're saying if all our vibrant townships do not have economic activities, then we're not doing our job, particularly as the Gauteng Growth and Development Agency, in ensuring that the growth that we're looking for is inclusive in nature. So building on this momentum, the 2026 conference seeks to deepen global partnerships while positioning Gauteng as a gateway for investment into African markets and regional value chain. Like I said, that we tried by all means to actually take the Pan-African approach and push invitation of African subnational ministers to ensure that there's collaboration and particularly in lead generation of investors. We will be highlighting opportunities across priority sectors, which includes infrastructure and logistics, advanced manufacturing and reindustrialization, the green economy and energy transition, digital economy and innovation, agro-processing and food security, and lastly, tourism and creative industry. I was saying earlier, I would like to visit Czech and Prague. That was about to learn how they've actually taken that and commercialized their tourism and cultural offering. and make sure that that becomes a sector on its own. So these are some of the things that we're looking at as this provincial government. So these sectors, they represent high growth opportunities that align with global investment trends and Africa's development trajectory. So Excellencies, your role in this journey is quite essential. Diplomatic missions play a vital role in connecting Gauteng with the rest of the world, rest of the continent, also with investors seeking new opportunities in Africa. Your role is quite critical in connecting Gauteng with businesses looking to expand in their regional footprint. We already have businesses that have said to us, assist us to actually reach out into other African markets. And we think that the relationship that we have with the embassies here and in our businesses and the networking session would open those networks so that we're able to assist our investors, that are already investing in our destination, to now start expanding their regional footprints. And lastly, the institutions seeking for long-term development partnership in the continent. And through your networks and economic diplomacy efforts, your help will help us to build the bridges that link global capital with African opportunity, which is an important one. So today's engagement is therefore not only about just information sharing, whilst that is important because when we share information, we learn from one another and we look at what is the best practice. But this engagement is also an invitation to collaborate more closely with the Gauteng Growth and Development Agency as we prepare for the Gauteng Investment Conference 2026 and as we continue to strengthen Gauteng's position within the global economy. Your Excellencies, Gauteng is indeed that gateway to the South African economy, and we're happy to play that facilitation role. We're saying when Gauteng works, the entire country works. And when this country works, we believe that the region works as well. So we want to build the Africa we want, an Africa that is prosperous, an Africa that is industrialized and globally competitive. And this, ladies and gentlemen, would require a very strong partnership, not partnership just in talks, but partnership in just ensuring that we implement some of the projects collaboratively. And these partnerships is partnership between government, partnership between investors and industry, and partnership between Africa and the world. So we therefore look forward to welcoming all of you and many of you and your business communities to the Gauteng Investment Conference 2026, where together we will continue building partnerships that will shape the next chapter of Gauteng's growth and Africa's economic future. So we believe that that's a platform which we've opened ourselves up as Gauteng. We said, no, it's not about us. We need to take everybody along. So together, let us unlock the full potential of this golden province of ours as a gateway to, for investment into Africa. And let's create this Gauteng Investment Conference as a platform for building the Africa we want. And we look forward to seeing all of you at Melrose Arch on the 9th of April. And we hope that you will start, taking, golf clinics, because on the 10th we've got the Gauteng Investment Conference Golf, a nice way to network as well. I was saying to you earlier that Gauteng is hosting an international or a global tournament, Live Golf in Steyn City, where a lot of high net worth individuals who might be interested in some of the projects that we have as a province, but also as a continent, might want to invest. So thank you very much and welcome, and I look forward to the engagements.
Good morning all. I stand on the protocols that have already been observed. I'm Kotso, as I've been introduced, from the MBI, which is Business Intelligence, where we provide, or we are the research department of GGDA. We meet at an interesting time where the global economy is at turmoil, the risks are quite elevated, and uncertainty. So if you think about 2-3 years ago, things that we thought were risk events have now materialized. Those with a risk background will know if you build the risk model, some events you say it's a 1 in 100 event or 1 in 1,000 event with a small probability of occurring. All those events have materialized, tariffs have been implemented, but geopolitics that we spoke about that were a risk have now materialized. But what is quite interesting is that even in the midst of this uncertainty, global trade continues. If you look at data for 2025, global trade reached about $35 trillion, the highest it has ever been in the midst of uncertainty, which then tells us, one, our supply chains are more nimble post-COVID. Companies have found ways to move products around, but there's still demand. So the world continues in the midst of this uncertainty. And if you look at the numbers as well around trade, developing markets are trading a lot more with the developing markets. If you look at 1994 to about 2014, developing markets, was about 40% trading among themselves. Now that number is above 60%, so we are moving in the right direction. If you look at South-South trade, which is your LATAM, Asia, Africa included, the growth in that trade is almost vertical. So developing countries are trading among themselves, which is what we want to see. And when we come back to Africa, normally at these forums when I speak, I would always say Africa does not trade with Africa, and there are many reasons, right? We spoke about infrastructure earlier, but I think the critical point is the trade routes were never developed for Africa to trade with Africa. It was to extract, and then we export. But where we are moving now is we need inter-Africa trade. The South-South trade that I spoke about has been driven mainly by regional integration in Asia, investment in infrastructure, making it easier to do business in those economies. That is why Asia is trading among themselves, and that is why we see a lot of exports moving in that region. That is the next phase. When I started, I said the world is at a turmoil, and with uncertainty, it means then that we need to trade with those that we know. It is through these engagements that we trade with those that we know. There's a lot of uncertainty, risk have increased, but also an important point that has been raised earlier is that there is capital. There is money. Those that are listed entities will know it's expensive to sit on capital. It's either you give it to the shareholder via dividends or you invest it back into the business. And capital says we want to invest. And it is through these engagements that we are going to see this investment taking place. Just to give you examples, we host a lot of these forums, but also we attend a lot of these forums with the JCCI, Johannesburg Chamber of Commerce and Industry, for across the countries. I think the past 12 months we did almost 10. Algeria, Tunisia, Egypt, Ghana more recently, many others. But what came out of those engagements is that, for example, I think it was the Tunisia or Algeria one. One gentleman stood up and said, look, there's a particular type of oil that I need. In my country, it's needed. And within the room, a gentleman stood up and said, I can source it for you. I can give you 2 containers. But within the room as well, there was a logistics person that says, hey, I can come in and link everything and get it to you in the shortest possible time at the best rate. So the messaging that I'm saying is these engagements are critical and they're important. And trade continues, as I've indicated, in terms of in terms of even in the midst of this uncertainty. Another important point is investment. You cannot grow without investment. We need this investment. Just to give you a sense and just to sell our province as well, if you look at FDI data for 2025, investment from outside the country coming into South Africa, we got in excess of 100 billion rands. If we look at Gauteng, out of that 100 billion, and we got in excess of 30 billion of that. But more recently, when we speak, people say, you're quoting old data. More recently, if you look at Q4, which is October to December, we received about 25 billion into the country. 9.8 billion of that in rands came from Gauteng. That's about 44%. So money continues to flow into Gauteng. Which sectors are receiving that money? It's broad-based sectors, it's real estate, and there's a reason why it's real estate. Any investment starts with a building most of the time. So therefore, real estate continues to attract, renewable energy continues to attract investment, manufacturing as well. So it's not just one sector. It's not mining, but it's a diverse number of sectors that are receiving this flow. Ideally, we want more, and it is through these engagements where we look at making it easier for you to do business. And as Marcus, our MC, has indicated, through Invest SA, that's the reason why they exist. So the FDI is quite important, investment, trade is taking place. So in a nutshell is the uncertainty won't go away. You can diversify risk, but you can't diversify it all. You can only manage it. And that's where we exist. That's why we are here to serve you and give you the solutions. Moving on to the next slide, which is, what is it that GGDA does? I go out and do a lot of public speaking, and somebody would say, we don't know what you guys do. We give you another example. I went to a rail conference last year, presented there. I'm from a banking side, investment banking environment. Post the presentation, everybody started calling me. Hey, we didn't know that institution exists. I said, hey, we're actually very close to ABSA Capital or ABSA, investment banking. We are close to Investec. We're here in Senton. We can give you the solutions. And that's when the calls started to come. So it is through these engagements with all the diplomatic missions and the business people that we are saying, we are there, we exist, and we can provide solutions to your problems that you have. In a nutshell, what is it that GGDA does? The slides are not moving, but I'll continue. We're an implementing arm of the Gauteng Economic Development Department. Our role is to, as I've indicated, we are an implementing arm of Gauteng Economic Development. You can look at GGDA maybe in three ways, right? There's trade and investment, which I'll touch on. There's economic infrastructure development. CEO spoke about it. We need to invest in infrastructure, but also develop the township economies, right? We need to pull everyone up as we attract investment. And business intelligence, that's where I come from, which is really research more than anything. If we go to the next slide. So we've got focus sectors that we look at. The sectors now have increased to 12. I think post the conference, we are going to launch the Gauteng economic plan. That plan has 12 sectors that are critical. Through those sectors, we are one, looking at attracting investment, creating jobs, but more importantly, growing this economy. These are sort of some of the high focus sectors that we are looking at. Energy, transport. In energy, it's mostly renewable energy. I told you when I spoke about FDI, a lot of the investment that is coming through is going into renewable energy, and that's where we want Gauteng to move to. ICT, digital services. A lot of data centers are also coming here. The world is moving towards AI. Data centers are important, are going to drive where the world is going. And that's where the capital is also going, if you look at in terms of investment. Tourism and hospitality. Tourism matters. If you look at tourism, those that are coming to South Africa for tourism activities, the numbers continue to rise. Gauteng gets a bigger share of that. Agro-processing, agribusiness, cannabis industry, construction, automotive and aerospace and defense, financial services. It's important also to note, financial services, where we are in Senton, we've got some of the large international banks that are present here, and the solutions are there, the funding is there, capital is there. At the conference that I was at, for example, on the rail, one of the banks, London or international banks, were saying, we've got appetite, we also have the capital to fund projects, as long as it's not in fossil fuel, but we are going to fund it. So therefore, there is money out there. It's about going to bankable projects. We can go to the next slide. Okay. It's fine. Let's continue with our presentation. So, as I've indicated, a lot of the work that we do is the previous one. Okay. So, in a nutshell, this sums up what we do as GGDA. The first one is investment promotion and development. We identify and promote investment opportunities, engage foreign ministries. As I've indicated, since I started here in April last year, a lot of these engagements take place 2-3 per month. And these engagements matter. Investment facilitation, that is when we help you, as Marcus said, to help you fix and make sure that the bank or your project is bankable, but also bring you closer also to the funding institutions. Business retention and aftercare, that's quite important. If you are frustrated in your business with certain things, and we come in, we can say, well, let's help you. Where is the bottleneck? Is it a municipality level? Is it a provincial government level? Let's try and engage and solve that problem, because we need that investment. As much as we want to attract it, we want to also retain it into the province. And trade promotion. Through trade promotion is we need to trade with Africa. South Africa and Africa needs to trade among themselves, and therefore trade promotion becomes quite important. Helping SMMEs gain access to new markets, that is quite critical in the work that we do. So the work that we do, it's these 4 columns, but it's way much more than that. Get in touch with us, we are quite responsive, and we've got Marcus who's very responsive in what we do. So in a nutshell, this is what we do as GGDA. We want the investments into the province, but also we want to attract the right investment in those sectors. We are available to engage, and post this discussion, we can have a chat and see how we can solve those solutions. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you so much. So, good morning, everybody. Sani Bonani. Assalamu alaikum, Maslema. It's in Tunisian. Thank you very much. I feel taller. Like once, it's amazing. Usually I'm a little bit short, but it's okay. But today it's perfect. So thank you so much for being here today. Before sharing a few reflections from the Tunisian perspective, allow me first to thank the organizers for convening this timely engagement and to express my appreciation to the distinguished speakers who have preceded me. Their insights this morning are very important, especially talking about numbers. I'm very bad with numbers, really. I'm so sorry. But I'm sure that the upcoming event around Gauteng will be a great success. I have the advantage being here in South Africa as ambassador to talk a lot about economic diplomacy, and it's for me today a real honor to join not only me but also my friend the ambassador of Gabon, our friend from Egypt, and all other embassies that are here today around to talk about the Gauteng investment Conference 2026, and then I was talking my dear friend Lamini that it will be the 9th of April. It's a day off in Tunisia, but I'll be there. I'll be there in order just to support you and also to see if we can connect more and better and do business together. Ladies and gentlemen, when we speak about diplomacy today, we often think of negotiations, communique and protocol, but the truth is that modern diplomacy has evolved increasingly. Diplomacy is also about markets, it's about supply chains, it's about entrepreneurs and innovation. Or to put it more simply, economic diplomacy is diplomacy wearing business shoes. So, and like any good investment strategy, it requires vision, it requires trust, and a bit of patience, because returns do not always come overnight, but when partnerships are strong, they tend to last. From a Tunisian perspective, economic diplomacy is about building bridges between countries, but also between business communities, innovators, investors, and young entrepreneurs. It rests on 3 key pillars: promoting trade and investment opportunities, supporting businesses in accessing new markets, and advancing regional and continental economic integration. Tunisia approaches this with a clear conviction: Africa's economic future will be built through connectivity between its regions. In this context, Tunisia sees itself as a natural bridge with Egypt, of course, linking North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, and the Mediterranean economic space. South Africa, and particularly Gauteng province, is an essential partner in that vision. Gauteng is not only the economic heart of South Africa, it's also of the continent's most dynamic hubs for finance, manufacturing, innovation, and services. For Tunisia, strengthening economic cooperation with South Africa is therefore not only logical, but it's strategic and natural. Tunisia offers strong capabilities in sectors such as agri-food and agribusiness, including olive oil, what we call in our words, our green gold, dates and food processing, automotive components and advanced manufacturing, renewable energy and green technologies are also key. ICT, innovation and digital services, as well as tourism and creative industries, can be sectors to negotiate and to do business together. South Africa, meanwhile, offers an impressive industrial ecosystem, strong financial institutions, and a vibrant entrepreneurial culture. When we combine these strengths, we can create new African value chains that benefit the entire continent. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to talk more about the African Continental Free Trade Area, the AFCFTA. AFCFTA has the potential to create a single market of more than 1.4 billion people, with a combined GDP exceeding $3 trillion. But as we diplomats know very well, signing agreements is the easy part. Implementing them is where the real work begins. From a Tunisian perspective, there are several areas where we can do more and we can do better. First, we must strengthen business-to-business connections. Second, we should improve logistics and connectivity. And third, we need to empower small and medium enterprises. And for me, this is a key sector. We need to support women-led enterprises, ensuring that continental integration benefits not only large corporations, but also emerging entrepreneurs. Diplomatic missions, in this sense, are not just observers. We are connectors, helping governments, businesses, and institutions find common ground. And this is an open invitation to all of you. If you are in Pretoria, please get in touch with my embassy. We do have an amazing economic counselor. She can be very helpful. If you need any information, if you want to do business in Tunisia, please feel free to get in touch with us. It's easy. With Google, you can find us. It's easy. If not, ask ChatGPT. So the Gauteng Investment Conference 2026 represents, I'm sure, an excellent platform and opportunity to advance this vision. Investment conferences are not simply about attracting capital. They are about telling the story of a region's economic potential, its infrastructure, its talent, its opportunities, and its ambitions. And Gauteng certainly, I'm sure, has a compelling story to tell. As I invited you to get in touch with our embassy, I want also to talk of some initiatives I'm doing, and one of them will be on the 16th of April. It's not in the 9th, no worries, it's after. So hope you can join us. As women entrepreneurs, and especially in agribusiness, are very important and crucial for us, even in Tunisia, but I'm sure also in South Africa. So we are organizing in the embassy, we will host an event dedicated to women in agribusiness. The idea is simple, is to showcase products, share inspiring stories of women entrepreneurs, and create a space where producers, investors, and partners from Tunisia and South Africa can meet, even virtually, and exchange. So I warmly invite all of you to join us. It will be a great opportunity to celebrate women, to celebrate entrepreneurship. It's not easy to pronounce because, you know, I speak Arabic, I have French also somewhere. So it's entrepreneurship and cooperation between our two friendly and amazing countries. Allow me to conclude with a brief and personal reflection. During my time here in South Africa, I have come to appreciate that diplomacy is ultimately about people, it's also about connections, and sometimes about friendship. Economic diplomacy works best when it connects entrepreneurs with opportunities, innovators with partners, and ideas with investment. Tunisia and South Africa share a deep commitment to African development dialogue and cooperation. Our responsibility today is to translate this shared vision into concrete economic partnerships. So, standing here today in Gauteng, I feel inspired to say something simple. Today, I'm Gautenger. Not by birth, of course, but by conviction, because economic diplomacy teaches us that prosperity grows when we dream together. And like many of you, I share a dream of a more connected and more integrated African economy. Thank you.
And show your wins.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you and Ambassador and members of the Diplomatic Corps and CEO of the GGDA. It's really a pleasure to come and spend some time interacting on this concept of what we call economic diplomacy. I wear two hats. I head up faculty at the business school GIBS, which is the #1 business school in Africa, but I also run an organization called The Strategists. We do strategy for different types of organizations. And one of the things I spent lots of time on was running a BRICS center at my business school GIBS. And in the period that we actually ran the center, one of the things that was central to our ability to bring countries together was, how do we drive economic diplomacy as a business school? What is it that we do to be able to drive the connectedness? And we did a huge amount of work with the Gauteng Growth and Development Agency. And so it's great to stand up today in 2026 and really reflect on a topic that is particularly close to my heart in where we are. And I say that because I often say the future isn't what it used to be. We're in a world, as we heard from our chief economist at the GGDA, where we're starting to see a significant amount of turbulence in the world, whether it be macroeconomic turbulence, whether it be political turbulence, whether it be geoeconomic confrontations, whether it be the massive acceleration of digital and technology, whether it be sustainability and the fact that 2024 was the hottest year recorded in the history of the world, and 2025 is centered to be almost similar. And that means that we have to start to think about what type of world do we have to think about, and how do we bring countries to come together to learn about female entrepreneurship? How do we think about the agribusiness sector? And I often then say we need a much wider lens. And the wider lens requires us to be able to say, how do we find ways to be able to increase this awareness, this understanding, the sense-making of what is really happening in the type of society that we live in? Because we've moved, let's be honest, from a world of relative predictability to a world that's got so much more uncertainty, greater economic volatility, much more frequent and devastating natural disasters. And that means that what happens at the macro level has an impact and an influence in terms of how we run organizations. And let me give you an example to elucidate this. When we see a massive increase in terms of the price of oil and gas, I'm going to argue that it affects the most marginalized in emerging markets like ours. And I say this because a few years ago, I hosted the Minister of Finance at GIBS in a forum, and the minister said that South Africa is a 40-by-5 world. And I probed, and I said, what do you mean 40-by-5? He said, the work of National Treasury tells us that 40% of South Africa's working population lives on average in 40 square meter, often informal homes, travels on average 40 kilometers to get to work, the impact of apartheid spatial planning, spends on average 40 minutes of their commute time to get to work, and in a killer spends 40% of their disposable income on transport to get to work. So when the oil price increases and all of a sudden we see an increase in the price of fuel and the resultant impact in terms of transport and the cost of goods and services, it affects the most marginalized in our society. So the world is interconnected. The world requires us to be able to drive economic diplomacy in terms of bringing business leaders together to learn from each other, to connect with each other, to invest with each other, to trade with each other, to find new bilateral and multilateral relationships that come together. And I want to share with you perhaps one example of why this is particularly important in the type of world we find ourselves in. I don't know if you can just kick to the next slide, please. One of the things that I spend a lot of time on in terms of really looking at this world we find ourselves in is the pervasive influence of technology. And it's an area that I do a lot of work in. And I want to share with you perhaps why when we bring countries together, we learn more deeply, we start to appreciate how there's so much more relationships between countries. So you all remember COVID. COVID was the mass accelerator, as I called it, right? And COVID created a massive increase in terms of our ability to be able to use digital technology. It's much harder today to be able to do the work we do without the digital technology. So let me use 2 examples. In 2021, and by the way, all these numbers have gone up, we were sending 69 million WhatsApp messages. WhatsApp today is more than a messenger service, right? Because if I open somebody's WhatsApp and they get 2 blue ticks, and if I don't reply, they get emotions and feelings and anxiety and all of these things. Another example I'll share with you is Tinder. If you're not familiar, you can download it and figure it out. But also I see many good users here, right? So Tinder is a dating app, right? People who want to find dates with people in their geolocation. And Tinder has 2 million swipes every 60 seconds on the internet. 2 million people looking for dates on the internet. The Economist came out with a very interesting piece of work, not economic diplomacy, but people diplomacy. It said that in 2007, 4% of relationships were formed online. It says that in 2024, 71% of relationships are formed online. People finding each other, connecting with each other, and dating each other online. I hope they meet in person, but that's what I hear in terms of what they do. I am happily married. I learned about this because I teach a case on Tinder at the business school, in case you're wondering, right? But in 2025, there's a very different type of influence and impact in terms of what we see, and this is what I call the significant influence and increase in terms of digital technology. It took 60 days for ChatGPT to get to 100 million users. To give you some reflection, it took 75 years for the television to get to 100 million users. Even the internet took 4 years to be able to get to 100 million users. It means we're moving faster, we're moving more rapidly, we're starting to see acceleration. We are in a world where the economic value of AI is projected to get to $4.4 trillion US. And why I reflect on this as one example of what is happening in the world is a maybe window into how important it is to be able to have economic diplomacy. And so one of the things that I have been a particular fan about is to be able to expose individuals to other countries, to be able to get them to jump onto an aeroplane and to go to Prague and to go and see what is happening in these societies. It's also to be able to bring international investors and business schools and leaders and companies and organizations to come into the South African environment. A few weeks ago, I hosted a very senior delegation from Harvard Business School where I studied, and one of the faculty at Harvard said, I never imagined this to be South Africa. I said, what did you imagine, Professor? He said, I imagined it to be a lot more complex and very different. And if you stand here and you look out there, and our ambassador had a posting in New York, this is akin to New York, right? It's very interesting in terms of how sometimes we must create or change some of those perspectives. And I want to maybe reflect on why, and I'm going to share the case study of why perhaps getting countries to meet each other is so important. Peter Drucker says that in times of rapid change, the learners will inherit the earth. What he means is that this intellectual humility that we must always be learning. We must always be sense-making. We must always be figuring it out. He says the learned will find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists. And so, yes, the world is turbulent, but as I often say, the greatest danger in times of turbulence is not the turbulence. It's the inability to act with new logic, new spaces, new opportunities that are out there. And so, there are many gamuts of economic diplomacy, from a beautiful investment conference that is happening on the 9th of April. Another example of it is what we have done in terms of creating what happened at the G20 summit and the incredible hosting of it and the ability to be able to get countries to meet with each other, but also business leaders to meet with each other. The case study I want to share with you today is some of the work that we've done in terms of getting executives to go from one country to another. And so this is what we as a business school have done for many, many different types of organizations over the years. So as an example, last year I took a very senior group from Standard Bank to Spain and to Kenya. And it was amazing to be able to see the exposure of meeting with leading fintech companies and banking institutions and organizations. And coming out of that is the ability to deepen partnerships, opportunities for deepening fintech relationships, opportunities for bilateral relationships between banks and organizations. Another one is our Bank CETA group that we've taken across many geographies and countries across the world to go and explore. And I was sitting on my phone making notes, and as the ambassador was speaking, I said, the next country I must take a financial services group to is to Tunisia, because I was not aware of the state of financial services, the type of development that's out there. And this is what we mean when we talk about executive development. A third one, which is particularly close to my heart, is the food bev sector. We took more than 100 leaders in various iterations to Kenya to go and explore food manufacturing innovation, sustainable production, the way in which an economy in East Africa is servicing the East Africa region and the ECOWAS region, and why regional integration is so important, and what does it mean for us as a SADC region. SADC has got 287 million people. It's an incredible economic opportunity if we can get connectivity right and connectedness right, which unfortunately we don't have at the moment. I'll touch on two examples. 2 weeks ago, I hosted the executive team from Kenya Airways here in South Africa, and we took them to one of the most incredible facilities that is not spoken about in this country, which is the PRASA facility in Nigel that was done in partnership with a private sector company to build locomotive trains for localization that employs more than 5,000 people in Nigel. It is amazing the type of opportunity that came in, or how public sector governance is done in where we are. And I decided to reflect on this as a case study, how we get executives to go into other societies, because I think it's one example of how economic diplomacy can work. It provides exposure, it allows us to deepen insight, it gives us this ability to look at brilliant examples of best practice, it allows us to showcase how societies can be better together, and it also gives us this ability to appreciate how inclusive prosperity really comes together. And I'll close with an example that perhaps is very close to my heart. So I sat on the board of General Electric, an incredible, very large, very diversified American company that has been operating for a long time. 26% of General Electric's operation here, all of the profits goes to sustainable development and specifically to enterprise and supply development. It has been incredible what they've done in terms of creating inclusive supply chains. And when I hosted a delegation from the US and we went to go and see what inclusive supply chains look like, it was amazing the lessons and learnings in terms of how they appreciated how do you create much more inclusive economic development, where large companies can connect with medium companies and small companies and create much more inclusive supply chains in such a way that we create new industrial companies that come together. And for me, that is what we need to do more of. This ability to be able to drive that connectedness in where we are. And that's why when GGDA spoke to me, I said it's amazing, CEO, to have a Gauteng investment conference because it creates that space and that opportunity to do that. This is one of perhaps various examples of how we drive economic diplomacy, but I thought let me reflect on one case study, one example, which is immersive learning, taking people out of their space and going into other spaces that come together. Thank you.